Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Reselling 101 with me, Karin. This will be part 6 of 10, and hopefully that started recording before the little live button went on. If it didn't, we're going to have to do take 2, which you really can't do in live. So this section is all about creating the how of your record keeping and the much debated spreadsheet. Dun, dun, dun. Always debated, never duplicated, right? So let's just jump right into, and again, this is just the beginning stages because it intrigues me that a lot of people are intimidated by this part of the process. You hear the word spreadsheet and everybody's alarms go off, right? So if you've been doing this for a long time and somehow you've come to Reselling 101 just for entertainment purposes or something, please refrain from highly critical statements. And if you're here as someone new to this, really, this is just to motivate you to do something. You know, keeping track of what you sell and how much you make is kind of important because in addition to being intrigued by the intimidation people feel about spreadsheets, I'm a spreadsheet kind of girl, so I don't get it. Although Jason pointed out to me this morning that at some point I didn't know anything about spreadsheets. And in my old school way of thinking, if I didn't have this Mac or if I didn't have a computer or technology, I would be writing it down on a regular spreadsheet. What are those things called? The booklets with your, anyway, just pluses and minuses. That's how I would do it. So let's go and just screen share. And again, we're going to make it from scratch. So everybody will feel like, and I didn't do it in advance, so it's purposefully going to be a little bumpy. All right, so here we go. First, as we start everything that we do, everybody take another deep breath. This is going to be quick and painless. So I'm actually creating this in Numbers, which is the spreadsheet or Excel equivalent that Apple offers, and not doing it in Excel, but hopefully this will make sense. So that's really not what I wanted to do, but here we go. So let's imagine this is your list. We've never done anything before. We want to jump out there, sell things, and this is how we're going to do it. So right away, I'm going to suggest to you, oh, it's not going to take the zeros. I have to format it. So right away, oh, we'll make that number 10. The first column is your item number. And we're going to name all the columns as we go. It's important. So when you go back, you'll know what you're dealing with. And I'm not going to really worry too much about formatting. I'm a little OCD, so everything's got to do what it's supposed to do. All right, so these are your inventory item numbers. And I'm going to use hypotheticals for this just to make it simple. But when we go into other, when we actually start listing and doing the specifics, I might change those. But I want you to just sort of get a feel for how to do it and what is important to you and what you should really be, you know, wanting to retain and what's just too much, too minute. The minutia, don't get analysis paralysis necessarily when you just get started, because I know that that can be frustrating. So we're going to start this spreadsheet with the item number, and that's going to be important. Your item number is always going to ascend, and you're never going to use these again. So at face value, this is an easy way to keep track of how many things that you've ever offered for sale. It'll also come in handy with inventory at some point as well, but just for this purpose, let's think of this as that's the item number that we're selling. The next column or the next cell field, we're actually going to call the item, and that's going to be our title. And in this case, the first thing that I ever sold were a bundle of socks. And I'm not going to go into too much detail here at this moment, just because I'm doing a simple inventory. But your item name here can actually be it can mimic your eBay title, quite honestly. And if you want to get in the habit of experimenting with that, you know, you could actually put, in this case, let's call it, and it wasn't this, but Champion Crew Socks, men's medium black. And this may or may not be what I get into when I do my title for my listing, but just play along. All right, so what else is important? We've got the item number, we've got the item name, and then, oh, we talked about inventory, spot, and I'll just call it that for now. Where are you going to put it? So in my case, I've decided to do everything that's mine in my separate area. We're going to call it Area K. And in a previous video, we sort of talked about, you know, inventory and what it could look like for you. And you've just got to make that work for you. And the purpose of this cell, this column, is so that you'll know where to find your stuff. Like if I'm out of town, for example, and Jason or Ben need to ship something for me, this is mission critical, because if I sell clothing, if I sell DVDs, if I sell collectibles, if I sell shoes, they're not necessarily all going to be in the same bookshelf or closet or whatever. So in this case, my shoes are on a bookshelf, right? K, that'll tell them it's my room, or K whatever. Fixture 1, which is my bookshelf 1, they're on, oh, I did an exclamation point. So they're on fixture 1, they're on shelf 1. And because for this example, things are going to be all different sizes, all I'm going to put here is Karin, bookshelf 1. And actually, let's do an A1, maybe to keep it simpler. So that tells you that it's Karin's, it's fixture 1, which is bookshelf 1, or area within my room of 1, and it's shelf 1, which for our purposes, because I like to start at the top, we'll make the top shelf always 1. So there you go. Hopefully that made that whole inventory mystery a little simple. Now, there's places for you to put dates, and I'm not going to enter all of them, but if it's important for you to track how long it takes between when you buy something, when you list it, and when you sell it, I think this is good for accountability, so that you can kind of see if you're, you know, staying on top of yourself, so to speak. But you can put things like dates listed and dates sold. Although you can pull that pretty much from eBay as well. You may want to put this in your spreadsheet. Next, the actual cost of the item. Or actually, we'll just put cost, sorry. Now, this is interesting. This warrants some discussion, because when we talked about my big pile of things, right? I've been purchasing and piling things as well as pulling things from the house. And I think I mentioned that I have a whole lifetime collection of these statues that I want to sell. So how do you assign a cost to something that either was given to you that you didn't pay for, or that you bought so long ago you don't even remember? So I'm going to throw two things at you, and it really depends on how you're keeping track of your money, and how it matters to you what you want to do. So for me, I put in a penny for those things that were a gift, just to sort of jog in my brain when I'm going back over the spreadsheet that, you know, oh, that was something that was given to me. Now, here's the thing. When you're reconciling your records, when you're doing taxes, when this pair of socks actually sells, which let's make that our next column. And actually, in a perfect world, we're going to sell it for what we price it at. But maybe you're taking best offers, so we'll just put a sold price there. You can have that if you're going to differentiate. But for me, I would probably just change this column. So this particular pair of socks, let's say I put it for $12, right? So here's the thing. At the end of the year, when I go to reconcile my profit on this, if I just put in a penny, it's going to look like after fees and such, which we're not there yet, that I made a lot of money on that, right? And that can be good and bad at the same time. So take this with a grain of salt. Put in there what is going to make sense. You can either put a penny, just some amount that it was a given item or that you didn't keep track of by receipts and how much you paid. If it's something that you just don't know, or do a fair market value. And in this case, how much you would buy them at Goodwill or whatever. But if we made this 501, that penny would still tell me it was an item that I was given for free. Now, if I bought a pair of shoes, let's say Cole Haan sparkly deep toes, which it doesn't exist. So let's just not even. So that's going to be KB2. That'll be on the second row of shoes. And I actually paid a real amount for those. And so including tax, that would be, say, $538. Pulled it out of thin air there, whatever. And then what we sold them for. Ooh, let's sell those for $50. Now, you can, like you can in Excel, we can assign characteristics to these cells. Like this one, I would want to make dollar sign, and I don't want to get too hung up on that, but there's a way to change that over here to make it money instead of just letters, and that's sort of the next step in spreadsheets, and I don't want to get everybody bogged down in there. But so we have our cost, we have our price or what we sold it for, and for now I'm going to get rid of that one. And a category. Where would this one go? I would probably put socks if it's just a clothing item as clothing. This would be a shoe. Precious moments, mom, statue. That would probably be somewhere else. And with those, for example, with these collectibles, and it's not precious moments, but just for argument's sake here, I would actually, they're going to be prepackaged and a lot easier maybe for folks to find in my absence. But that's another one where I'll assign a value, and maybe your value for items that you've either owned forever or that were given to you for free is a constant. You're just going to have to make that determination. And that's just collectible. And you can use categories. There's a couple of different categories. So if you're just an individual selling, that category could be where you put it in eBay. That'll help. Actually, when you do a listing, where you put it, it'll say, what it'll actually suggest for you. And we'll do that. I'll walk you through that when we do an actual listing. But eBay will actually prompt you to put it in a category that makes sense. Now, if you have a store, I've learned that there's also a secondary category within your store, so that if someone comes to your store, you professional sellers, you can actually group your items. So if you're a jean guy, you put all your jeans in the jean category. It's a separate step. If you're selling shoes, all your shoes would go there. And the benefit of that is, if you've got your store, and people follow you, it's a really easy way for them, if they like you, hopefully they do, to go in and say, wow, I really like this pair of pants. I'm going to, maybe this fella has some more, this gal has some more peep toe sparkly Cole Haans, and I'll go see those as well. Fees, I'm not going to necessarily put fees out here, and I'll tell you why. I think a good rule of thumb is whatever you paid for something, and let's assume that these socks, were for $5. I should probably be selling them times 3, because a good rule of thumb, and don't take this to the bank, it's not the gospel, but a good rule of thumb is the thirds, right? So if I paid $5 for my socks and I put them for sale for $15, my cost was $5, my profit, my fees are $5. Yes, there are fees. It costs money to make money. So eBay is going to charge you, PayPal is going to charge you, and you may incur some, supply costs. There's other things that are going to cost you money. So just to keep it simple, just an easy math in your head, because I don't want you to get caught up. Keep everything simple and don't psych yourself out on the math. So on this item, it's, you know, safe to say, and I'm sure people are going to have something to say about this, but $5 cost, $5 fees, $5 profit. And at the end of the day, when we reconcile this, your profit could be higher than that, but just for ease, just sort of, that's what I want you to think about. And on this page, I am not going to, personally, I do not chart how much it costs me per item to sell it. I think that's a waste of your time. I think at the end of the day, if you wanted to make a spreadsheet that said, you know, the month of May, this is how much I made in sales. You know, I made $250. eBay charged me a total of negative whatever. And I'm gonna look probably not real bright doing this, but let's say eBay charged us $70 of that. Actually, it wouldn't be that high. So let's say eBay charged us 50 of that. PayPal charged us 50 of that, and it doesn't actually work out to be that way. And then you have some other costs. But as far as expenses go, when you're just getting started, you don't have to make yourself crazy, I don't think, per item. Because if you're thinking at it big picture, that it's roughly this percentage it's going to cost me to sell this item, that's the habit that I want you to get into. And when you're reconciling at the end of the month, and that's going to involve formulas, insert sum, there we go. So there we go. Ooh, I just whipped a formula on you. And all that did was it added all these up. 250 minus 50 minus 50 equals 150. And I had really wanted to get into some detail about that, but maybe we'll do it on another one. But the tab that I made here is just a platform summary. So if you're selling on eBay, if you're selling on Etsy, if you're selling wherever you're selling, this would be your total income, and then you'll minus your fees out from there. And hopefully this is, I wanted to enter formulas, but I think we're really out of time. So we'll save formulas for another day. But it's just basically a plus and minus sheet. You don't have to stress yourself out. The main thing that I want you to get from creating your spreadsheet is that you're keeping track. And it amazes me how you can ask someone, you know, well, is it profitable for you? And people think they're making money, but when you take a look at it and you hold yourself accountable, sometimes you're maybe not making as much as you think you are, or you could do better. You know, one of the things that I always tell people when they're out making money, especially if, say, you're making a cash deal on Craigslist or something like that, and you meet somebody, you sell your item, and then you're on your way home and you're like, oh man, I got to pick up my dry cleaning. So that $100 that you just picked up, you went and you spent some of your dry cleaning money, you spent some of that money on your dry cleaning, and then you're like, oh, I'm thirsty, or oh, I'm hungry. And then you go through the drive-through and you spend some more. So you get home and you've got $60 all of a sudden instead of that 100. And that's about discipline. It's about good habits and keeping that money that you made separate, right? I'm not saying that you can't spend it on your big gulp or anything like that, but it does affect your bottom line. And at the end of the day, if you're going to strive to make money, then I think that you need to, you know, have some discipline and keep it separate and keep track. I hope that this made sense. I know that it's really hard to cram. I don't even know how I'm going to put photographs into a 10-minute segment, but we'll try. Thank you for joining me here this morning again. I don't know everything, and I tell you guys that up front. I'm hoping that this will begin to simplify and demystify record keeping in relation to your own reselling journey. Know that it's important. I think you really need to keep track of how you do business, how you make money, and it will kind of, maybe it'll be a sort of wake-up call for some folks in, you know, are you really making as much as you think you are? Math is not intimidating as intimidating as it should be. Is it important? Yeah. Do you have to get all crazy with it? Nah. I considered putting this on, there I am. I considered putting this on a Google Sheets or something, you know, because I really am perplexed when people come and say that they struggle with spreadsheets, and they're really not meant to be that intimidating. But instead of, and just stay with me, I know we've gone over time here, but instead of giving you a fish, I'd rather teach you to fish. And where this is a very simple spreadsheet, just a checks, a plus and minuses sort of thing. You know, Jason has spent hours, for example, perfecting the, what do you call it? The world famous spreadsheet, right? And it can tell you, God, it could probably tell you the weather, I think. But he offers that, and there'll be a link to that on this video as well. But it's whatever's in your comfort zone. And if you're getting anything out of this today, let's start now to start holding ourselves accountable. Let's have some discipline. And if you're really out to make money doing this, then let's become the most streamlined, efficient way to do that. And I get that my example may have been uber rudimentary, and it's maybe not what you do or not what you're used to, but it's meant to, you know, certainly not the only way, but a way to get you thinking about how to do better with record keeping in the future. So again, thank you for joining me. I hope you got something out of this. Even if it was just, I hope you go out there today and kill it and have an awesome whatever today is when you finally view this video. So thanks for joining me. This is Karin at Reselling 101, demystifying the spreadsheet, I hope. All right, you guys, happy Reselling 101 to you.